Good evening. My name is Alun R, and tonight I am facilitating a game of Monster of the Week, a PBTA game by Michael Sands, as part of the Gauntlet online community. If you don't know about the Gauntlet, then you will want to look it up by searching for the Gauntlet RPG, and you will find plenty of opportunities to play games like this, therefore for particularly members of the community, but for anybody else as well. We're a public community. This is tricky because the last session ended because there were some difficulties with my internet connectivity, and so we had to curtail the last session. So we are picking up from part 2A. This will be part 2B of this two-shot. To just set the scene, the characters are members of her, or are working on behalf of Her Majesty's Pursuivants, who protect Britain from the supernatural and the occult. I'll let the players introduce themselves and their characters in a moment, and they'll provide the continuity from our last session. I will just point out that we'll continue to be using the recommended or preferred, I guess, safety tools that the Gauntlet espouses. Principal among them is the X card. If a player makes that sign, then I won't ask them why they've made it, but something will have disturbed them. I may ask them how far they want me to rewind the fiction to make sure that I'm clear of what disturbed them, and then we'll play on from there, hopefully with me avoiding something that disturbed them. You know, my hope is that the players will be disturbed in a good way, but we don't want them to be disturbed in a bad way. We're also playing with some lines and veils. The ones we've agreed for these sessions are lines we will not cross, so they will not appear on screen, so to speak, in the fiction. Are graphic violence against children, graphic sexual violence against anyone, graphic torture, or graphic violence against animals. And we're also playing with veils, so while they may appear in the fiction, they will be behind the curtain, so to speak. So sex, it will sit behind the curtain. It may happen, but we will draw a discrete curtain across and not see the details. I think that probably is enough briefing from me. So what I'd like to do now is to ask tonight's players to introduce themselves, introduce their characters, and just provide us with a bit of continuity from the last session in terms of the key thing that is preoccupying their character as we begin this. Okay, so I'm going to start in the order of the character keeper. Not quite, no, I won't. I will start. Christopher, can you introduce yourself and your character?
Absolutely. So I'm Christopher. I will be playing James tonight. James is an expert. He is in his mid-50s, so he has seen his fair share of monster hunting and supernatural already in his life. I imagine him being like this tall, slim, tender, old-fashioned guy, like dressed in old-fashioned clothes, always properly, neatly, tightly dressed. He doesn't really like the modern stuff so much, so he's not into computers, smartphones, and things. He will use them, but only if absolutely necessary. And obviously, he has a huge fable for books of all kinds. Like, I mean, like just old-fashioned books, supernatural stuff, magical books, everything there is. And he found this really nice first edition of Alice in Wonderland, which he nicked out of the Cathedral of Ripon, and which is actually getting himself and his fellow agents into a bit of trouble, as last session he was approached by this quite insisting policeman. And somehow James wasn't able to talk himself out of the situation. Even the help of Sharp was not enough to get the group out of this misery. So somehow James or whoever has an idea needs to solve this predicament with this book and the policeman. Yeah, so let's see how this will work out.
Okay, thank you for that loose end that we need to tie up in the next 3 hours, while defeating the Fairy Queen of the North. Scott, can I ask you to introduce yourself and your character, please?
Sure, I'm Scott R, he, him, and I'm playing Lunk, also he, him. Lunk is possibly the spaciest member of our fine organization, but due to his ability to put things together, including random bits of information that seem unrelated, he's still a valuable member. Since we've been here in Ripon, he's spent some time with some of his former fiancées, of which he has many scattered throughout England. And with the loose end that I'll touch on, as we were visiting Ripon by the Sea, which was a sort of festival set up to give some of the youth in town the feel of being at a seaside resort. A portal of sorts seemed to be snatching away kids, and a teenager seemed to be leading them. I noticed that Abigail, the 9-year-old daughter of my former fiance, of one of my former fiancés, was in the line with the teenager, kind of following her Pied Piper style. And I was able to sprint across the lawn and grab her arm, at which point I believe that I always get your guys' names messed up. I know mine. That James similarly sprinted across and grabbed the arm or the hand of the teenager. And that's where we paused when the internet imploded at Alan's house.
Thanks for that, Scott. And finally, Will, can I ask you to introduce yourself and your character, please?
Sure thing. My name's Will, and my character is Sharp, who is an initiate, and he's a member of the Pursuivants. He's in fact the only fully fledged member of the ancient order of Pursuivants. Although thanks to austerity cuts, he's the only Pursuivant north of Watford. And his style kind of reflects that lack of a budget, lack of a funding, and getting by on chance and bloody-mindedness, basically. And he has his own little mission from the Central Order, which is to find out more about the Winter Court. Even if they don't save the town and foil the Fairy Queen, the main order wants to know what's going on with the Winter Court.
Thank you for that. And it's probably just worth, for our many viewers, just summarising that the Pursuivants are interested in Ripon because they have learned of a very long-standing ancient fairy pact. And investigation so far has revealed that it appears to have been originally signed between the Fairy Queen and Saint Wilfrid, who built the first church in the town in the middle 600s AD. And since then, the pact has required the clergy to surrender Ripon's most loved child to the Fairy Queen every 40 years. And our characters discovered a record of these going back to the founding of the local newspaper in the mid-1800s. They do know that the recently deceased dean had discovered at least the disappearance of the children and the apparent collaboration of the church, and was preparing to raise this with his bishop, when, through the use of Sharp's capacity to look into the past, they were able to see the dean being killed by a creature they've identified as a fairy redcap. So that's the context. The mission is technically to resolve the issue so that the Fairy Queen no longer terrorizes Ripon. Quite a tall order, perhaps. So we will pick up exactly at the moment that we cut for our very long commercial break, at the point in which I have James with his hand on the arm of the teenage babysitter. I have Lunk having grabbed Abigail and Sharp observing this from the edge of this maze, which is just a path maze. There are no hedges. So let us begin with a simple question of Sharp. What do you do when you see James sprint past you because you were looking the other way? You spin around and you see what we've had described happen. What do you do?
As James drags away the teenager, I would jump forward to try and shepherd any kids out of the maze. Any of the remaining group of kids. You're muted, Alan.
There are two other kids who are kind of standing there about 5 and 6, and they're just kind of.
Yeah, Sharp kneels down and goes, "Hey kids, let's find your mummy and daddy, shall we? Come on," and leads them aside.
And I don't think that'll be difficult. So you go off, and in the beer tent or nearby, you will certainly find the two sets of parents. Right, James and Lunk, what do you do? Any order?
So I want to drag this teenage babysitter like somewhere where not everyone is staring at us. I don't know how like the crowd is reacting to what we just did, but I basically want to fetch her and drag her to somewhere like where the stage is, to the side of the stage or the backstage area.
I think that because of the way that the fair is arranged, so the attractions are around the edge of this maze, and so everyone's attention is largely on the attractions, looking away from the center of the maze. And so far, no one has screamed and pointed. And so I think let me ask you to act under pressure, please, just to see whether you can smoothly maneuver this 13, 14-year-old young woman away from out of sight. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
That's plus cool. Okay. 7, 8.
So on 7 to 9, I'm going to give you a worse outcome, a hard choice, or a price to pay. I think the hard choice is you can move her, but it looks like she's about to scream. If you move her, I think she will scream and attention may be drawn to you. Do you still choose to move her? Or will you have the conversation where you are?
Then I will freeze and stop if I recognize that she's about to open her mouth and scream. And I will look at this kid and try and... I mean, there's like two thoughts in James's mind. Like either it's a fairy disguised or it's the girl is possessed. So this is like what James wants to find out in this moment.
Okay, well then, while he's thinking of a different approach, I'll cut to a shot of Lunk and ask Lunk, what's he going to do with Abigail? Because Abigail is beginning to look frightened. She spent some of the morning with you, so she's not frightened right now, but it looks like she could get frightened if you just nudge her the wrong way. What do you do?
So I will say, "Oh, you were heading in the wrong direction, Abigail. The Punch and Judy show's over here. They're going to start up another show. The puppeteer's just gone into the booth. Let's head over here. My mom's over there." And I'm just trying to calm her down.
Fine. I think that distraction will work. And I don't think it'll be difficult if you choose to go via the beer tent and pick up her mother if you want to, or do you want to keep her with you and the Punch and Judy?
I'm going to go pick up her mother.
Okay. So I think probably then there is time for the conversation between James and this young girl before Sharp is back from delivering 2 children to their parents, and before Lunk decides whether he's going to leave them watching the Punch and Judy or whether he's going to stay and watch the Punch and Judy. Yeah. So James, she's looking at you, and you can see that, you know, she knows that she could cause a fuss if she chose to. What do you do?
So how does this look like? So does she look like I just, you know, like woke her up out of, you know, out of a dream? Or is she like standing there smirking, being like this, you know, wise ass person? Yeah, I know you caught me, but I could, you know, this is what James tries to find out. Like,
I think that you were trying to read a bad situation, which is roll plus sharp.
Okay. So it's 10 and sharp, that's 12.
Okay, well, if you look at the move, it says on a 10 plus hold 3. And you can ask me any 3 of those 6 questions. And if you act on the answers, you get +1 ongoing while the information is relevant. So which question would you like to ask me first? Which will give you a sense of her and the situation.
Are there any dangers we haven't noticed yet?
Her. She is looking at you as though if you're not careful, she's going to bite you.
Okay, I see. So how do I interpret this? What's my best way in?
You can use that as broadly as you like. That could be, if this was a situation where you were looking to get into a location, you could ask that question.
Okay.
But it could equally be, what's my best way in to understanding this person or opening relations with the person? Yeah.
Yeah, that's my question. Yeah. So then what's the best way in?
I think that you need to let go of her arm and perhaps offer to have a grown-up conversation with her, because she is looking at you with the eyes of someone who is much older than the 13 or 14 that she appears to be.
All right. Then I will...
You don't have to ask the third question now.
Yeah.
You can hold it.
Then I will, after realizing this, I will immediately let go of her hand, and I will apologize for touching you. I hope I didn't hurt you. I might have read the situation incorrectly, but I was worried about, you know, the kids that just disappeared.
And she says, that's your fault. I only needed the one. And now you've lost 4.
So, okay. How did I lose 4? And why is this my fault? I saw you leading the kids into the circle.
And I'd have left the others here if you'd let me take the one I needed.
Oh. Okay. So Okay. So let me guess. You didn't get the one you want. You got 4 that you didn't want.
Yes. Shall we make a deal?
That largely depends on the deal.
I'm going to cut there with your one hold still intact. And I'm going to cut because I think probably if Lunk and Sharp want to be returning to the center of to where you are, so far there's no fuss, but at some point, some parents are going to notice that there are 4 missing children. Lunk, Sharp, what do we see you doing as you observe James having this conversation with this young woman?
I think Sharp's instinct would be to try and head this off before the scene breaks out. Part of the Order's role is to keep these mysteries hidden from the public view. And as soon as he sees James, engaged in conversation with the teenager, taking her seriously rather than just as a bystander, I think he's got enough experience with the ways of the Fae to maybe at least have a suspicion of what might be, that she might be more than meets the eye. And he would stride over to see how they might resolve this.
Okay. Coming from a different direction, I think. Lunk, what do we see you thinking or doing?
I turn towards my former fiance Elizabeth, and she may have had a different name last week. If any of our thousands of viewers want to tweet at me and let me know that I was wrong, that's okay. But I turn towards Elizabeth. Oh, I think I saw some mates over there. I'll be right back. And I just sidle away and head towards them.
And I think we'll just, as you drift into the background at the focus, we'll see her turn to a friend of hers and said, he's a tosser. He never hangs about. And then, so I'm seeing Sharp and Lunk converging on James and this young woman. What do you want to do? Sharp, how are you going to stop this turning into a hunt for 4 children?
So James, who's your little friend there? And what's she got to do with things?
Oh, I'm sorry. I look at the teenager. I didn't get your name. We didn't introduce ourselves properly. So
I'm
James.
Ivy. I'm Ivy.
Ivy Mythenroyd, by any chance?
Woo! I think that you see a kind of look of confusion across her face, and she says, I'm Ivy.
Yeah, but what else are you, Ivy? Wouldn't you like to know? Tell you what, I might have some information for you, but maybe we could make some sort of a deal together, yeah? And we could come to some kind of arrangement where you tell me some things and I can tell you some things, Miss Mythenroyd.
I think I probably need you to roll to investigate a mystery here, unless you've got another move that would allow you to kind of divine what she's thinking, or maybe read about a situation. I don't know. It depends on which question best meets your need. Or do you think you understand what's going on here, and in which case you don't need to roll?
I mean, her name is Ivy. The last missing kid was Ivy. Changelings are a big thing, right? I'm trying not to metagame too much, but obviously Sharp is a member of an order that's dedicated to, keeping the supernatural under wraps in the UK, and the Fae are a major part of that. So I personally think that he would have enough of a suspicion to, to be where I think it is.
Yeah, I've just been checking out. I think as this fiction is unwound, I think what we're beginning to see here is that the pursuivants fall into two different parts. There's the slightly bureaucratic civil service ones, which is the core of the order based in London. And I'm beginning to wonder whether the northern pursuivants, of which you are the surviving member, because you don't get the funding anymore, as with nothing in the north, your arm is much more interested in magic than civil service bureaucracy and law.
Well, we don't have not enough money for both a bureaucrat and a field agent, so I end up wearing both hats, and you got to get your hands dirty, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think that probably when we said earlier that you've been given a mission, I think that mission is one you've given yourself, because this might put the North back on the map as far as the blokes in London are concerned. But all of that will flash through your mind. I think you're absolutely right. I think that you have enough to put two and two together here and suggest that this could well be Ivy Mithelroyd, the last child to go missing almost exactly 40 years ago. Though it must be said, she looks 13 or so. And she is, I don't think that she's looking as if she's denying what you're saying. It's almost like she can't quite understand what you're saying. Okay?
What year was it that she went missing? It was 1980.
It'll be 89.
89.
No, 79, in fact.
79. I'm trying to pull some pop culture references from the 70s and be like, you know what, why don't you come with us? We'll have a cup of tea. We'll listen to, I got Bowie on my tape cassette player.
Yeah.
Why don't we listen to some of that, Ivy, and we can have a chat?
Yes, I'm not going to declare here that technically I think she's 2 years younger than me, and I'm desperately trying to remember pop references from the 1970s as we speak. So good luck with that. Yes, fine. I think that she's realizing there's perhaps more going on here. James has said he has implied he might be interested in a deal. You're now talking about, I could tell you this if you tell me that. Lunk, do we want to see you do anything or say anything in this scene, or are you prepared to just go with this flow?
I'm going to, for right now, I'm going to watch. Although, have we found out what the deal is? She just wants to make a deal. I'm going to ask the gents, you think we should make the deal?
Well, Lunk, it all depends on what the deal is, but, I'm certainly within my powers to make a deal on behalf of the pursuivants and Her Royal Majesty. And I think little Miss Ivy here is going to find out that, we've got more to offer than she might immediately think.
I do want to know how you are going to either avoid a fuss around missing children erupting shortly, or how are you going to remove yourself from the scene, because we know that the police are already interested in James. The coincidence of the three of you being around the site of 4 children going missing is now beginning to just tickle at the back of your minds. Okay, what do you do?
So my idea is to convince Ivy to make a very short-term deal and to hold the truth that we know about her before she left, right? She's clearly forgotten some things. She can remember vaguely what it is, but what we've got information about the world, about her parents, about when she went missing, about the town. And it's to try and, she's a 13-year-old kid as far as we can tell, right? And I'm trying to manipulate her into making a rather worse deal for herself than what she would originally have maybe hoped for, right? We get those 4 kids back right now, and maybe the promise of renegotiating the original deal or revisiting it. Like, we're not saying those 4 kids and you'll get nothing, but if you bring those 4 kids back now, we'll enter further talks, but we'll also tell you right now who you are, all the information that we have, and try and dangle a secret in front of a 13-year-old's face, basically.
Okay, I think I'm prepared to go with that. So why don't you see how effectively you do manipulate her, which I think is for an NPC roll plus charm.
Can I spend my hold for this? I mean, I still have 1 hold, and I mean, I did roll a 12, right? So I can ask any question, right?
No, unfortunately, no.
Okay.
Those 12 pluses only kick in if you've taken an advancement, and in effect, you'll get very good at one of the moves. Up until then, 12 plus means nothing. But you do have a hold, and if you act on the answers, you get +1 ongoing while the information is relevant. So I think if you make the deal, you could have +1 ongoing around making the deal, because it was you initially who suggested a deal. I'm prepared for that to happen. Sharp's idea, you act. Unless Sharp has got something else that would be more advantageous.
Now that sounds good to me, because I would then also perhaps be in a position to help James with his persuasion, with his making the deal.
Yeah. Okay. So James, you are going to try to manipulate Ivy to go along with Sharp's suggestion. So you're going to roll plus charm, which I know isn't great, but you will get a +1.
All right.
Come what may.
Let's see. 6.
So 6 -1, 5, +1, 6. So Sharp, I think this is a question of whether you can help out by rolling plus cool. And I mean, it's kind of, it doesn't matter, but you would normally add 2 because of the move you've chosen. But go ahead and help out if you can.
Well, I only roll a 5 on that, so that's a failure. But I'm going to burn a point of luck.
Fine, which turns that automatically into a 10+, or a 12+, actually, I think, technically, if it mattered. So you add 1, you do help, mark luck, and James, you creep over the line into 7 to 9. On 7 to 9, they'll do it, but only if you do something for them right now to show that you mean it. So what are you going to offer, Ivy? That, or what? I treat this as a group. What is the group going to offer Ivy right now to make it seem like actually this could be worth my while?
The newspaper clipping of Ivy that we took from the Gazetteer. Yeah,
I think that's quite a cool thing to do. So so you kind of, it's a print because it was all online, wasn't it? But you unwrap it and you give it to her, and you can see as she looks at you, Mum, Dad. So she will go with this, and it's as though she kind of just reaches across the center of the maze and shepherds out the 4 toddlers. So with all that in mind, then, what are you going to do in terms of a deal? Because she's going to agree to a deal. She's agreed to the short term. You've given her some evidence that maybe, could she meet her mum and dad?
Well, that would be my instinct, would be to, essentially try and leave while the leaving's good from the fair, and there's no scenes of mayhem perhaps taking place, and to visit the street where she was on. I imagine we don't know the current whereabouts of her parents. They might not live in Ripon anymore, but we could at least take her to her old street, which I imagine would have been listed in the newspaper based on how they write such things.
I think the cutting will have said of number 18 Crescent Parade.
Yeah. And like I'd say that Sharp is wary of Ivy because she's clearly supernatural in order, but she's a victim to him. She's one of those taken, so he doesn't know quite what she is, but at the moment she's just another kid that needs protecting.
If nobody else has a suggestion, I'm going to wipe screen straight to you walking up a Victorian terrace in Ripon, counting up number 16, number 17, number 18. Who's going to play point on this? Who knocks on the door?
Who do you guys think should be a point?
Lunk, could you knock on the door? Just ask if the Mythemroids are in. The Mythemroids. I never know quite how you say that name. Just wing it. And Ivy, why don't you just stand over here? This is the right house, yeah?
And as she's been walking up this, as you walked across Ripon and up this street, she's kind of just looking round and just getting more and more pale and kind of it's like stuff's leaking back, I think is fair to say.
Yeah, Sharp will hand her a polo out of his pocket as well. Go on, Ivy, here, suck on this.
And so you're staying out on the street. There's a garden gate and a garden and a door. But Lunk's going to go to the door, yeah? So
we'll stand at the end of the gate so that we can see, but we're not there right on the doorstep.
Okay, so we cut to inside the house. We hear a knock, knock, knock on the door. Somebody opens the door and we see Lunk. Go for it, Lunk.
Hello, I'm looking for Mr. Or Mrs. Middenroyd.
The man who opens the door is he's probably in his, I guess he's very old now, so he'll be in his 80s probably, at least his 70s. So he's quite frail, and he peers you and says, "Who's asking?"
Oh, my name is Lunk, and I've been doing some research on Ripon, and I was doing research on their daughter had disappeared in the 70s, and I just wanted to ask some questions.
I think when you mention his daughter, you can see his face hardens. Fuck off, and he goes to close the door. What do you do?
I'm going to say, no, sir. This is not an exploitative piece. I actually feel your pain. I've lost a family member as well, and I know how hard it can be, and how the pain of the loss never ever goes away.
He's still trying to close the door, but you hear a call from in the house. A woman's voice saying, "John, who is it?" It's nobody. It's nobody. But he's not closed the door in your face. I think you are going to need to be. You're going to need to convince him. So how convincing are you? Shall we try manipulate?
Yeah, and I've got see, it all fits together, so I actually add my sharp instead. So. Seven, I got a 9.
Oh, so close. So on a 9, they'll do it, but only if you do something for them right now, blah, blah, blah. So what is it that you can do to convince him that he should talk to you?
I'm gonna call her up. I'm always making the wrong decisions here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and say, come on up.
Do the other pair of you let Ivy go up the garden path on her own, or do you go with her?
I think Sharp will just let go of her hand and sort of, slowly push her forward, like depending on how she's, sort of like respectful distance, but, letting her take the lead, not kind of just shoving her forwards or anything like that.
And so again, I think we'll cut to a point of view looking over John Matholmeroyd's shoulder, where the white hair of a woman has now appeared, peering out at you, and probably we see a shadow just moving up behind Lunk until Ivy is just behind you, Lunk. What do you do? You're muted.
I'd like you to meet someone. And I just say, darling, please, I think you know this man.
And so, a couple of tight shot on John Matholmeroyd, and you see his eyes go. And you can see his wife's face behind him, and she's going, "Ah, Ivy!" And then we cut back to Ivy, "Dad, Mum," and I think you're in the house. What do you want to do once you're in the house, the three of you? Because there is then a scene of, how can this? I said, Dad, you look so old. Ivy, where have you been? It's almost, what are you going to do to explain this peculiar event?
So I'll say some explanations are in order. You seem to have had a shock. Let's go into your sitting room, and I'll make tea, and then we can talk. I have some colleagues who helped me in locating Ivy. Would they be welcome inside?
I think, to be honest, at this point, they've already gone into the sitting room. No one is going to stop either Sharp or James coming through the front door into the hall and turning left into the sitting room.
And I'll just be as reassuring as I can, and I'll get them some tea or whatnot. And
you are the hero of the hour. You walk on water in the house of the Matholmeroyds at the moment, but at some point the elation is going to turn into what? So what do we see in this explanatory scene?
So I can imagine that there will be this moment when Sharp is making tea, and then James will start to explain this very technically, like, how time differently in different spheres and how the Fae are totally differently affected, and he goes on and on and on without realizing that probably the Mittenrights probably cannot follow what he's saying. and I can imagine that when Lunk comes back with the tea, he probably looks at the tea, looks at like the Mittenright sitting there with like even more questions now, and then he's like, okay, this was perhaps too much. Lunk, perhaps you can explain this better.
Yeah, I think that's lovely, because we see James embarking on his explanation as Lunk disappears into the kitchen, and when Lunk comes back having made tea, James is still talking, and he looks at that and goes, and there's complete silence. The Matholmeroyds are just.
T. Yeah, I can explain everything. Why? Have you? Let me ask: are you religious folk?
I am now, says John.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Because the story is going to require a little bit of belief. Would you believe that your darling Ivy was abducted by a fairy, by the Fae, and we were able to get her returned just today? It's crazy. I know. But you can see her. She's here. What other explanation could there possibly be? It was an alien abduction, I can tell you.
I think peculiarly, I think that kind of slightly down-to-earth approach will work. I'm not going to waste your time with making you roll a dice. I think your see it all fits together covers all of this fictionally, and so I think the question that the Mytholmroids will have: note to self, change name of family for international audience. The Mytholmroids, I think, probably kind of accept that, but they're left with a question, which is, why Ivy?
Well, now Ivy's clearly a very special girl, and seems a long time ago. The saint who set the cathedral up in this town, he made a pact with the fairies, and most beloved child of the Ripon would be taken by them. And I think that's what happened to Ivy all that time ago. Is that right, Ivy? Is that where you've been?
And Ivy is struggling a bit. It's almost as if, as her memories of her life as a human child are returning, some of her memories of her time in Fairy are beginning to get hazier. But yes, she says, I've been a fairy princess. And it's all, as she says it, it's almost like, but that doesn't make any sense. And then her mother says, we have to ring everybody. We have to tell them you're back.
Now, I know you're excited, but I don't think it's quite safe right now. See, we need Ivy's help. Ivy is the only person who can tell us how to make sure this never happens again. And if you start ringing all the neighbors and all the family up, we can't protect her if the people who took her come back.
I think that will, again, I'm not going to waste your time with a dice roll. I think that in terms of where their concern would be, that hits it on the nail. She's back. They don't want to lose her again, and you've warned them that there's a risk of that. So I think that's fine. But so, and her mother turns to her and says, well, how can she help?
All right, have you been working for the Queen? Does that ring any bells now?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's the Queen. I'm the princess.
Right. And do you have maybe a knight or some sort of soldier who's come?
Dee and Dum have been here. They've been looking after me while I've been here.
Dee and Dum. Now, where are Dee and Dum right now, Ivy? And what colour hat did Dee and Dum happen to wear? It wouldn't be red by any chance, would it?
Red and white, yes.
Red and white, right. Now, we knew that there was a red cap running around town, but would that be Dee or would that be Dum?
It depends. They're quite difficult to tell apart.
All right. Now, Ivy, the maze. Is that the only place that leads back to the court? Or is there another place? And how would we get through it if we had to?
No, there's another place. There's the crypt in the cathedral. That's where the Queen told me that Wilfrid signed the contract that meant that I could go and stay with her.
And well, what do you think Dee and Dum will do if they find out that we've taken you from the court?
They take me home. I mean, they take me back.
And do you want to go back, Ivy? Your mum and dad have missed you a lot.
I want to stay here.
Well, then we'll make sure that you can. Right.
And suddenly that kind of those quite hard eyes that had confronted James when he first realized that this was no ordinary 13-year-old, they soften, and this is a 13-year-old kid who's now terrified at being taken away again.
I've only got a couple more questions, Ivy. My first one is, what does the Queen want other than the pact? The pact is over. We're not going back to that. But what else might she want?
But the pact, it's there. It exists. You can't ignore it.
Well, maybe we just need to renegotiate there.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. And just trying to think. How does your Majesty feel about let's say iron? Are you a fan?
Just a setting detail here, because I'm drawing on some of the setting material produced for the recently published Liminal RPG by Paul Mitchener. In this setting, it is bronze that has a particular effect on the Fae. Okay. Iron's a bit too easy to come by.
I'm trying to, in a roundabout way, ask her about feel her out for any weaknesses that they might have.
Well, I think you are at a point now where I think you are trying to read a bad situation or predict what a bad situation might look like. What's your best way in? What's your leverage with the Queen? Is that fair?
Seems fair to me.
Then yeah. Roll plus sharp.
Yeah, I need to choose a character that's not named after one of the stats next time. That is a 7.
Okay, so you hold 1. Which question do you want to ask me?
I suppose, you said if we think about terms of ways in, as in ways in with the Queen into the Queen's good graces, then that is what I'm asking. What is my best way into the Queen's good graces? Other than fulfilling the pact, of course.
I think Ivy's view is she'll say something like, well, the Queen, I know she loves me, and she's very fond of Dum and Dee, but I don't know. That's all she ever talks about, is how lucky I am to spend time with her, and how much she loves me and wants to keep me with her. And she feels a bit the same way about Dum and Dee, I think.
All right. I'm thinking something's coming here. Sharp looks over at Lunk and goes, "You're not in the market for another fiancé by any chance, are you, Lunk? Because there's a lady up here who seems like she's just dying for company."
I'm always in the mood for that. I mean, there's a weekend every week.
Aye. Well, something worth keeping in mind. Maybe that'll satisfy. Anyway, lads, you got any questions for Ivy? Because I think we need to be getting about our business. The time's ticking on, and we've got an appointment with the local Bobby coming up. And also some plans to make.
I actually do have one question. So, Ivy, do you know, are there any other girls and kids that the Queen, besides like you and Dean and Dum, likes, loves, cherishes?
Oh no, in all the court, there's only ever been me.
Okay. So, do you know if there was like one before you?
No, the Queen told me I'm the only princess she's ever had.
Interesting.
Now,
Okay.
just so I'm clear, are you thinking about those other children that the local newspaper?
Yes.
She doesn't seem to recognize the idea of there being other children.
Right. Yeah. That's basically what I wanted to know. Okay.
Shall we count that as your third question, so we get rid of that investigate hold?
Yeah. That's
Okay.
right.
I think, to be honest, you will have been here for at least an hour, and let's assume that you spent 30 or 40 minutes at the fair. I think PC David is already looking for you. Just so you know.
Yeah. There is one thing I want to do before we go. If we leave the Most to it, I don't have any more questions for Ivy, I don't think. Maybe actually, do you know where Dee and Dunn might be? Where we might find them, Ivy?
Usually they're watching.
All right. And do they like anything? I could get them some treats. Maybe a packet of crisps, some pop. What do you think they like?
I'm a bit frightened of Dee and Dunn. I'm not sure what they like.
It's all right, Ivy. No need to be frightened anymore.
I have one out of question character. Are we aware of the weakness to bronze?
Yes.
All right. So in character, I'm going to turn to the parents. And do you have any bronze in the house?
They've got some brass candlesticks, but bronze, no, not really.
All right. Well,
it's the sort. I mean, Maureen, who's the mum, is kind of thinking. Says no. They found some bronze coins, I think, or bronze something, in an archaeological dig a couple of years ago. I think they're probably still on show in the museum.
oh, okay. All right.
But perhaps what happens when you talk about this bronze, ask them about bronze, whatever. I mean, I have an armory, you know. Perhaps I could check if, I don't know, my holy dagger is by any chance made out of bronze or something else that I might carry.
I think it's only fair at this point that I allow your blessed knife to be bronze. Because clearly, if it was, it wouldn't need to be blessed. It was made of a hard metal, would it? Probably hard metal. So yeah, I think it might well be some ancient bronze artifact that it was blessed by God when he was actually about in the Bronze Age. Yeah, I'm very happy for that.
All right, then I will turn to Sharp, pull out my knife, and say, I do have this. Might be helpful.
It looks good. I think we should keep hold of that. We could be needing it very soon. If we're all done here, lads, I reckon we leave them droids to their business.
Do you leave them with any instructions? I mean, you've told them not to make Ivy's return public. Is that an indefinite? Because that's going to be quite difficult.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to write down a couple of phone numbers on a piece of paper and pass them my card from the pursuivants and the royal household, and I'll say, you call this number and you tell them Sharp sent you, and you say we've got a code. What was it? A code 6 Ivy 5. No, code 6 Green 5. Yeah, that one exactly. and someone will be along to help you with sorting all of this out. You know, but what I need to ask you to do is you need to stay in this house. Can't let Ivy leave. Can't let Ivy anyone in other than us, right? And I'm going to do a little something just to make sure that you're safe and Ivy's safe while till this whole thing boils over, yeah?
Whatever you say, I think what any one of you says will be absolutely gospel certainty for this family, unless something else intervenes.
So I would like to, as we are leaving, I would like to use magic to bar a place or portal to a specific person or type of creature. And I would like to bar the exterior of the house from any fey creatures, effectively.
That's fine. So the departmental phone, we know, has the complete John D. Grimoire, so you're able to flick through it, find wards, and then flick down the sub-menu to find Fey, and cast a spell.
Yeah.
Which takes the form, I think, probably of you photographing the front door with it.
Yeah, that sounds good, yeah. Okay,
so
well,
roll plus weird.
That is an 11.
So I don't even get the benefit of saying, yes, but it won't last long. It is properly warded for the duration of this session, so you don't need to worry about them. Yeah?
I was kind of hoping it would fail so I could draw immediate unwelcome attention and then we could get to kicking some fairy ass. All right, yeah, no, it's for the best.
Okay, now, I don't know about you, it's 10 past the hour. What I'm thinking is that we could take a bio break and get a drink, and be back here, should we say about 1/4 past the hour? Is that reasonable? And that'll give you a chance to contemplate what you want to do next. Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
So
Sounds good.
I'll see you at 15 minutes past the hour.
Cool.
So I can't wait to find out how James is going to avoid the clutches of the law, I must say.
Me too.
Well, I'm glad you have a plan. I think you have a move called the man with a plan. By the way, I think that I've spent the hold I got for your start of mystery move when you tried to have a plan and it went horribly wrong. So I've used that hole to put you in a difficulty with the police. So you don't have to worry about that hanging over you. You are already in that hole. Okay?
Okay. So, but yeah, let's see. Let's see what will happen.
We'll give Scott another minute before I ask you what you do next.
Do we have a plan for dealing with the policeman? Because I do not.
Well, and you'll be pleased to know, nor does James.
No plans are good plans, right?
So, as we reconvene then after the commercial break, you have a number of leads, I think, but you still have the problem of the stolen book. So the time is up. You should have been at the station a good 30 minutes ago. But I suppose I'm interested in how you're going to stay ahead of the law, but I'm also interested in what, if any, plan you have in the bigger picture.
Right, lads, I think we need to find Dee and Dum. What would you say? The Queen loves them so much, maybe she'll pay a high price to get them back.
So, right, I think we need to try to capture them.
Yeah, capture. I'm easy.
Yeah. I don't know if you have an idea on how to do that. If we head to a music store, we might be able to get some guitar strings that are made of bronze.
Well, James has got his bronze dagger.
That's well. Then, if we go the kill route, that'll do it.
And I've got a couple of toys back at the backing car. I mean, and Sharp will pull out the magic knife that he has. So this should do this. This does the trick on most things, even if they don't normally like steel or whatever. Magic tends to do the trick. Shotgun might not be doing too well.
just to remind you of your original briefing, James and Lunk. The original briefing included a description of what had happened, and in fact, I think button cam coverage of what Jude Stratton had done when he confronted the Queen. His compatriot Preacher had enchanted his bullets, and he let loose with a machine gun at the Queen. Now, all the evidence is that may have disrupted or driven her off, but it certainly didn't put her down. So I think the question is whether you could enchant anything you like using your departmental phones, but I think it's likely to do more harm, not necessarily kill, just so you're clear.
Oh, yeah. Well, this I've got a gimmick on the phone here. Can probably trap any. Same way I protected the house there from anyone getting in. Can use that to stop anyone from getting out as well. Now, with a magic and with a knife, we could probably hold them back long enough. Now, I wouldn't want to try and look against the Queen. She's probably, that idiot who shot a machine gun at her on the camera. I mean, good God, you don't treat royalty like that. They'll get your head chopped off for it. But, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, probably slightly lower on the order of things. But the question is it going to be, where's the weak point? Is it going to be the maze or is it going to be the crypt? And when Ivy said about the pact, is that down in the crypt as well? Is there a physical side of this thing that we're missing out on? Is it not on just the agreement, but maybe there's an actual object or physicality to it down in the crypt that we might be able to pry apart.
Perhaps we should check this out. I mean, we still need to figure out what we do with, this lovely book I found.
Well, can I just see that, James? Can I just take a quick look?
But be extra careful.
I'll be very, very, very careful with it. And as James, holds it out with his hands gripped tightly around one side of it, Sharp is going to gently, gently snatch it away and be like, right then. Now, how do we get this somewhere where none of the blame is pinned on any of us? I'll buy you a first edition. How much would it be worth?
Can I just be clear where you are?
I feel like we're doing the West Wing walk and talk down the street.
Okay.
Sort of heading back towards town.
I could imagine we actually walk towards the cathedral.
Yeah.
That's fine by me. I will remind you that you promised the guide there, Agnes, or Lunk promised Agnes, an archaeological trinket in order to get her to show you the library. So just so you know that, Agnes may not have forgotten you.
I really want to keep this book, but I see it getting us into trouble. So
I don't want to take it off you. It's a lovely book, and you deserve one, James. You really do. I don't think anyone will ever love this book as much as you're going to love it. But the thing is that we've got a supernatural creature of near unlimited power that we've got to deal with, and we've also got PC plot on our tails, or for a Lewis Carroll story.
I know. It's such a tough choice. How about? This is.
Oh, come on! It's just a book.
It's not.
Lunk will get you it on Kindle. Don't worry about it.
On what?
I'll get you the Kindle first edition. It's fine.
Devices? Never.
I tell you what, my plan is: we drop this book back somewhere around where you found it, and we say, "Oh, it's been here the whole time. I don't know what all the fuss was about." Because that is the best idea I've got for it. We can't just hand it over now. It's stolen goods.
Just in terms of your walking and talking, if you check out your kind of point map for Ripon, you've come out of the northern end of those suburbs, that nice Victorian terrace. You've just walked past the One-Eyed Rat towards the Market Square, and across the way you can see the police station. Just thought you'd want to know that that's the route that you're on.
Maybe freeze as I see that nice blue. What's it called? Like the lamppost style thing that hangs from the edge of the police station.
The blue lamp, yeah.
Yeah, and look around for a side street and just go, let's just take a little detour, lads. Let's maybe not walk straight across town square.
Well, I think you already know that there's an alley beside the One-Eyed Rat that takes you into this kind of little maze-like set of lanes. So you could go the long way round, as you'll see from your point map. But I suppose at some point I need to know, do I need to wipe to the cathedral or do I need to wipe to somewhere else?
I think so. So as they start heading down there, I'm going to just kind of snag the book and walk straight into the cathedral. I'll get this done. We're spending too much time on a book.
I think I do need you to act under pressure. Just to get it as smoothly as that. Go ahead. So that's plus cool.
Uh, 10.
And there is Agnes at the front of the cathedral, just behind the big doors. And you walk through the doors, and she looks up and says, "Oh, it's you." Because clearly she's been
Agnes, I'm so glad you're here. I was waiting to come. I didn't find anything in the tunnels. They're interesting, but they seem to be maybe maybe some former tunnel robbers must have gotten to all the good stuff. But very, very interesting find. I don't know if you remember that the kind of stiff, boring guy that I was with. He was looking at the library, and he's very, very, very absent-minded. And he happened to put this into his briefcase, not even realizing what it was. I'm not a reader, but I figured I should bring it back to you guys. I didn't want you to think that that we had stolen this.
Oh, that's such a relief. Let me just go and take it to the acting dean. I'm not going to make you roll some dice here because I think she's feeling that she's potentially on the spot because she took you to the library. So she scurries off down towards the library because the office is up there. What do you do now?
And I just want to see, did that count as contrary for me?
Oh, yes, I think it should. Because we've been looking for opportunity for you to do contrary, yes. No, go for it, yes.
Cool. All right, go back to the other gentleman I just was checking.
So, you are at the cathedral. Lunk has successfully managed to divert you away from discussing the book and has +1 ongoing to do something else. Which I think is probably the crypt. Have I got the right sense of what you're about?
I would like to suggest that as Lunk strode off, we sort of paused in indecision as he strode into the cathedral. And from this kind of like the foyer kind of area, we could hear this interchange with him and the librarian woman. And as she scurried off into towards the library, I dragged James, whose look of longing and pain as the book went away from him, and I grabbed him and I pulled him down the stairs into the crypt area, like, you know, while the going was good, basically, while Lung was distracting her.
Fine, and there is a sign that says, you know, Wilfrid's crypt this way. And you will come to a point about halfway to the library stairs in terms of the geography. Beside a large pillar, there are a set of stone steps going down with a kind of crypt sign. Yeah. Yeah, so you go ahead.
Well, what should we be looking out for? James, you're the expert. What do you think we should keep an eye out for?
I'd say let's go to the crypt and then let's have a look. I mean, the portal could probably be anything. I mean, those... Yeah. I mean, let's just carry on. I mean, I need to see the crypt. I need to have a look. I need to see what's going on here.
Okay, you go down the set of stairs, and I've added a picture of the crypt to your case file to show you what you see. So it's a very small space. It's no more than about 4 paces by maybe 2 or 3 paces, and that is the view you get when you go down the stone steps, turn, and you come to that space. It's a slightly barrel vaulted. You can see there's some kind of alcoves where a candle is always burning. There's a kind of shrine. But in that picture, just to the left, there is another passageway, which is the way out. So you go down a set of stone steps here, you go into the crypt, and then there's another passageway that goes out to the left and comes up another set of steps a little bit further into the cathedral. So that's the kind of general layout. What do you want to do?
So this is a space. So I would like to... Now, this may be a bit of a stretch of the do one thing that is beyond human limitations use of the use magic spell, but the one thing I would like to do that is beyond human limitations is to say, sense magic effectively. Like look for the supernatural in this room. Would that be okay to do?
I think that's fine. You know that a lot of the phone's functions work by just holding it up and looking through the camera, in effect. So if you make that selection in the app menu, I don't see why you shouldn't be able to spot whether there is something peculiar in this space. So
Okay.
roll plus weird, sharp.
That is a 9. Now I can take a glitch, or someone could try and help me.
I think the difficulty with magic is that it is really down. It's difficult to see how someone's going to help you use that app.
Yeah, true. In the way that we've done magic here, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's not a ritual where we could all join in and channel our mana together. Yeah. So do I choose from the glitches, or no? You decide what effect the glitch is.
Yeah, I get to choose the glitch.
No, 7 to 9. I choose the effect and the glitch. The keeper decides what effect the glitch has.
Oh, fine. Sorry, you choose it. I'll tell you what impact it has.
I would say that I take 1 harm, ignore armor.
Sometimes some of these spells, there's a bit of feedback through the phone, and so indeed take a point of harm, and that's that. I will tell you that. Can you see on the left-hand side of that illustration what looks like on the ground they look like 2 steps going up, and the picture is not terribly clear, but it almost looks like there's another alcove in the left-hand wall. Yeah? That's not an alcove. It's actually a little kind of window that passes through to the passageway out. So there's a passageway behind that wall that takes you out, and there's this small, it's about so big, window from the crypt into the passageway. There's a little pile of leaflets on that in the other alcove on the right-hand side. And what you're told is that it is believed that in medieval times, before somebody was married in the cathedral or in the church that stood here, the bride would be required to go up those steps, crawl through this little window, and if she could get through, that was evidence that she was a virgin, not pregnant, and therefore the marriage could continue. But that's about all there is. But that window shows up as red through the phone's camera. And red, in this context, marks the spot.
Well, Lunk, there's this old medieval superstition, really. If you can go up those stairs and get through that window, then your next fiance might be the one.
Oh, yikes. That's a bit scary.
Hey, we've all got to grow up sometime, right? I mean...
It's just a superstition, though, isn't it? I mean, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, but it could bring you good luck, right? I mean, at the very least, it might mean that you get to meet a few more fiancés, right?
Oh, yeah. Let me go see. And I'll hop up there. Climb through.
So you climb through, and it's as though you've just, because you've looked down the corridor, the passageway. There's some steps up, so you kind of come in at ground level on that passageway, and you crawl through there, and it seems to you to be that nothing's happened, that you're in that passageway.
And I can still see...
No, you can't. When you look back the other way, you're looking into an empty crypt. And when you go back 3 paces down that passageway towards the crypt and look in, it's empty.
Huh.
And
I've never had that happen before.
And it isn't whitewashed. There are no candles burning in any of the alcoves. There is no little pile of leaflets in one of the alcoves. What do the other two of you do? Because Lunk goes through this, and when you look in the passageway, he's not there.
Was this our plan, Sharp?
I mean, I wanted to see what would happen. He seemed the smallest, also seeing the only one out of the three of us who would fall for it. I should probably go in after him. Yeah. Go on. That's going to be a tight bloody squeeze, isn't it? All right, come on then. Let's go get on after him. Let God knows what he's up to on the other side.
So what do we see Lunk doing on the other side?
So I'm just going to continue exploring. There's nothing I can do to make them appear. I'll call their name briefly, and if I don't hear a response, I'm going to continue exploring, trying to see what else has changed.
So what, are you going to follow the passageway as if to go out?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. What can I tell you? Well, you're not in Ripon anymore. I've added a picture. I've added a picture of where these stairs do lead out to, underneath the crypt. And I think probably because you've not left much of a delay here, you've not argued much about it. You will, Sharp, when you go first, to be followed swiftly, I'm assuming, by James, you will hear this Lunk steps as he disappears around the passage corner and up some stairs. Yeah? Lunk, you get to see that first. What do you do?
I'm gonna I think I'm gonna climb those stairs there and see what's at the top. It looks pretty interesting, you have to admit.
I couldn't agree more. As you approach the steps, was it gone? Bear with a moment. Oh yeah. I've added another picture. And as you approach those steps, this peculiarly fat creature materializes out of nowhere. What do you do?
Oh, hey, I was looking for you.
He looks impassively at you, and his hands, these fat, pudgy hands, he moves towards you like that, and you see that there's a large spike, a bony spike, arching out from each wrist. And that, I think, is the point at which first Sharp and then James arrive at the top of the steps. And he attacks you unless you do something else, Lunk.
I'm just going to kind of jump backwards to try to get out of the way.
Okay, well, let's
under pressure, I guess.
Yes, I think I'll let you act under pressure to see, because he's quite a lumbering great beast. And you know, we know that you're light on your feet, both physically and emotionally.
9.
Okay. What this will do is, on a 7 to 9, I will give you a hard choice. You can stay ahead of him, but it will put you on the other side of him from the route back into the crypt.
I'll take that.
Okay, so you're separated. In order to get to the other two, you have to go through him. For them to get to you, they'll have to go through him. So what I think Sharp is next out, was first into the scene after Lunk. What do you do, Sharp?
Sharp will pull out a sawn-off shotgun from his jacket and whip out the magic knife in his other hand. And I'll say, "Come on, you bastard, let's pick on someone your own size." And he will unload the shotgun at the creature.
I think that counts as kick some arse.
Yes, let's kick some ass then. Which I fully expect to not work well because we haven't worked out what this creature is vulnerable to. I have a warning kicks in tough. So that is only a 6.
Well, on the upside, I haven't been reminding you, but my assumption is you've been marking experience, all of you, as you have been failing these rolls. So mark experience. Now, normally this would give me an opportunity to give you a hard move, and that could be harm. But I think given that you unload the shotgun, he's not in a position to actually hurt you. But I think you are now the focus of his attention. Some of the shot may well have hit that blubbery body, but and made a hole in that rather nice stripy jersey. But he now then turns from Lunk and just runs at you. What do you do, James?
Have I any clue what this creature is? Did I ever, by any chance, read about something like this?
Those pudgy hands are very familiar. You might remember that when you investigated the scene of the Dean's death in his study, you saw emerging from a shadow a pudgy white hand which touched the Dean on the forehead, at which point the Dean suffered a traumatic cardiac event and fell dead. Those hands they look just as pudgy as that hand that came out of the shadows. So I think it's fair to say you think this is a red cap. Technically, in this context, a red and white cap, but it's the thought that counts.
The red and white cap. So is this one of the D and dumps?
I think that certainly, given how much time you spent longingly looking through that first edition in Alice in Wonderland, these are, if Tweedledee and Tweedledum were possessed by demons, this is what one of them would look like, with those bulging white eyes, this grubby white trousers and stripy shirt, and a little schoolboy's red and white hat. What do you do, James?
What do I do? I'm not so the fighting type, but
well,
I mean,
I think probably then I'm going to say that James thinks about what he's going to do, and so the red cap, be he dumb or D, is rushing at Sharp. I think it's fair I give Sharp the first chance to act, unless Lunk has something specifically in mind that might interfere with the red cap's action.
I'm going to say to him, "Hey, Clumsy, we've got Ivy. You know, the Queen's favorite."
I don't think Dumb and D are that sharp an implement. So I think that it will probably take this exchange of kick some ass with Sharp before that sinks in. So we'll see what effect that has. I will remind you that manipulate someone is deliberately phrased that way. Monsters and their minions are tricky to manipulate unless you've got some very specific leverage. And we'll see what happens with that in a moment. So Sharp, he's on you.
He's on me.
You have a chance to shoot at him again with the second barrel on the way in, or you can rely on your blade.
Having the shotgun having failed me, I will, basically, like, as he comes towards me, I'll basically use the shotgun as a kind of defensive move, like block his forearm with the shotgun and then try to stab him with the magic knife.
Well, before you get too far with your description of that,
let's see how it rolls.
What the end point looks like.
That is a 7.
So, on a 7+, you exchange harm. So you do whatever harm that knife does to him. Remind me.
So that is a silver knife, bronze knife, I suppose. Really,
Yeah.
1 harm and silver. But I have a ancient fighting arts, so I do 2 harm in this case.
Okay. So I'll mark 2 harm for him. His terrible talons only do 1 harm. Do you have any? I can't remember if you have any.
I do have a chainmail underneath my jacket. I have 1 armor.
It's a classic 1980s look. So you don't take any harm. The bone spur clatters across the chainmail, which might otherwise have done you a bit of harm. And at that point, I think he then backs off, thinking, "Hang on, that was a bit harder than I expected to be." And he pauses, and his head swivels 360 degrees, 180 degrees, to look back at Lunk. He says, "Ivy."
Yeah. She's fine company. She's really fun. Yeah.
And his body swivels round. His head keeps looking at it. The body swivels round, and he begins to approach you, Lunk.
Wow,
James.
that's crazy.
James,
How'd you do that?
What do you do, James? You don't have to do anything. I'm just offering you an opportunity before I get anywhere else.
So what? I mean, James is still like thinking about this original plan that we agreed upon, and is a bit disturbed by the turn all of this took now. So he's looking to Sharp, and he's like, so how do we now catch this guy without killing him?
I think probably in the heat of battle, it might be quite difficult for you and Sharp to have a conversation. Remember, you all have the departmental phone. Yeah. So if there's something in this plan that you thought was going to happen that nobody else has done that involved magic, you don't have to rely on Sharp to do that. You just need to tell me what you do. While you're thinking about that, I'm going to go back to Sharp. So having had 1 pass at you, he's now been distracted by Lunk and is walking ominously towards Lunk. What do you do, Sharp?
So Sharp is going to let the shotgun drop to the ground, and he's going to reach into his pocket and pull out his departmental phone again. He's going to check the battery, and he's going to maybe see whether or not the conditions are right for him to use the magic to trap this specific monster.
You did well to check, because your battery saver is on. Lunk, what are you going to do?
I'm gonna just engage in dialogue with this guy, and say, let's see. Yeah, we were hanging out with Ivy at the pub, and she told us all about you. She said that you were her favorite.
And I'm guessing that you're backpedaling up that path that we see in the picture as he kind of walks towards you. And I guess the question is whether you are interesting enough to stay ahead of him, or whether he's getting bored with your conversation. So I think this is, how cool are you under pressure, Lunk?
I'm all right. I'm not that bad, but let's find out in this situation. Ooh, I am 5. I am not very cool. I'm starting to shake a bit. So.
Yeah, which rather kind of undermines your effort to get him to believe you. So I think he will rush at you when he gets bored listening to you, and you will need to kick some ass when he gets up close to you. Now, I can't remember what you might be armed with.
I've got I've got my trusty brass knuckle, and I've got a 9mm pistol with regular bullets. It might still make a hole in him.
It might, mightn't it? Shall we find out? Roll to kick some ass, please, Lunk.
I'm going to roll, and come on, boxcars. Oh, I'm going to spend a luck to get a 12.
Okay, so on a plus, on a 7+, you inflict harm on one another, but on a 10+, you can choose an extra effect. So which extra effect do you choose?
Let's see. We're going to go for... everybody has the advantage. Everybody gets +1 forward.
Oh, that's
everybody involved in the fight.
Okay, that's very good of you. So he would normally do 1 harm on you unless you have some kind of armored protection. I don't think you do you?
Nope, I take a harm.
You take the harm, take 1 for the team, literally, and you can see his grin broadens because he thinks he's got you now, which will create an advantage for James and or Sharp to do something with +1. Shall we start with James?
Yeah, so I think so. James sees Sharp looking at his phone, like, I don't know, perhaps banging it in his hand. The battery's dead. And he, probably realizes, okay, shit, I need to do something here. So James will actually pull out his phone because he figured out that, I mean, we don't want to kill this guy. We actually want to trap it. And I think probably somewhere, in some book, I read something about how you can trap these things using magic. So I will probably clumsily navigate through the menu of my phone, looking for this shit, very, what, red cap, shit, trap, there it is, and then point it at this monster and see what will happen.
So roll plus weird, which I think for you is +1.
I think I have 1 weird, yes. So that's 7, and that's an 8.
So on a 7 to 9, it works perfectly. Choose your effect and a glitch, and I'll tell you what effect the glitch has. So you do indeed. You point the camera at him, you press the button, and you see. What do we see? I mean, how does this look through the phone? I'm just curious how Microsoft have engineered this to look when you trap a fairy.
Interesting. I mean, could it? So what I have? Perhaps this is too crazy, but I mean, perhaps could it be that actually I take a picture of this fairy, and then you see how this guy is like shrinking, and then moved into the lens of the camera, just, like sucked into the phone, and then there's like this picture, like this GIF there, and he's like moving in the phone, doing his like turning around his head, his body, and spinning in the phone.
I think that's brilliant. And at some point, you'll see him kind of doing this on the screen. I think that's brilliant. What's the glitch?
So what's the glitch? Let me have a look. Glitch. Ooh. So I would say, I mean, we are in a place where probably no one of us has like any kind of clue what's going on. So it's probably not too unlikely that the magic will draw immediate unwelcome attention.
I think that works very nicely. And I think the attention it draws, I'll deal with the attention it draws in a moment. Let me just be clear then. So you've photographed D or Dum, we're still not clear which one, into your phone. So he's trapped. And he's trapped until you press the release button. And so, yes, okay. So you've trapped him. Job done. What are the three of you going to do?
You all right, Lunk?
To find the closest pub, I'm going to need some scrumpy.
All right. Now, I reckon we turn tail, we get out of here, and then we see who comes knocking, looking for Tweedledee or Tweedledum. I don't think it's wise to go any further into Fairy.
Yeah. We have one of them, right? We wanted both.
I think one or the other's fine, right? Either we might have to deal with the brother if it comes looking, but Queen's supposed to like them both, right? So who knows? Maybe we got the favourite.
Yeah.
But now, if I can charge my phone up, we might be able to. I might even be able to. There's a summoning spell here in my apps, and I might be able to use that to draw things to where we need it. But I reckon they'll come calling once we've got one of theirs. Well, we've got two of theirs now, if you think about it, because I'm betting they've not let go of Ivy just yet. So, anyways, good work, James. Nice one. I'll leave out Alice in Wonderland, Alice's Adventures, and I'll put this in the report.
So I see you go back down into the passageway that led you up from the crypt, and same order back through. Lunk goes through, then Sharp, then James last. Yeah.
Sharp last. But yeah.
Okay, fine. So Lunk, you come back through into the crypt, followed by James, followed by Sharp. Wasn't this room whitewashed? Because it's currently bare stone.
Oh, bugger.
I don't think we're in Ripon anymore.
Well, all right. Let's have a look around. Let's have a shufty.
Could it be that the unwelcome attention you have drawn was the use of that magic has caused someone or something to lock the doors?
Okay. So we are still inside.
If you walk out of the crypt the way you've just come back into it, you will be back where you started in that fairy glade. The alternative is you go back the way that you originally came into Ripon's crypt.
I reckon we go back out the cathedral the way we came in through the up the stairs where we originally got down this crypt, and maybe we'll still be in Fairy, right? But we know there's one other door out of here. All we have to do is try and find the point where the maze lines up with this part of, usually, what's it called? What did your man say? Lauren Carroll, through a glass darkly. So that's what this version of Ripon is probably.
I've added a picture of where the original entry steps take you. It's a dark, candle-lit stone corridor, and it's cold.
So Does this resemble the cathedral in any way, or is this just something completely different?
It resembles it in as much as, you know, the kind of Gothic arches that characterize the cathedral are reflected here. You could describe it as a pastiche of some of the stonework that you've seen in the cathedral. Not particularly accurate, but related to it. Yeah? Mm-hmm. As if perceived perhaps through a glass darkly, for instance.
How far away?
Let's just keep going, guys.
I think Lung's got the right idea. I don't want to be hanging around here any longer than we need to. Looks like the kind of place royalty might be paying a visit to soon. Come on, stay close, lads. James, you got to keep that phone tight in your pocket, yeah?
This is one of those occasions where, you know, I cast back nearly 40 years to saying to groups of people, what order do you walk down the corridor in?
Well, Lunk is leading the way, of course, because he's hopeful that somewhere there's something to drink here. This has all been a little disconcerting.
I think Sharp is the rear guard. You know, I think he feels responsible for tricking Lunk into coming into Fairy and then dragging James along with him.
And when you go round the first corner, you're confronted by a very eccentric-looking woman whose picture I've added to your case file. And she kind of shrugging her. What can I do for you?
Can I bum a smoke?
Don't take it, lad.
I've only got the one.
Well, looking for something to drink. Looking for a fairy queen. Looking for something to drink. Those three things, not necessarily in that order.
Who sent you?
Broke up a little bit there, Alan.
Who sent you?
I have my own legs. I kind of just walk on my own.
You're a bit big for a child.
That's not what nearly all of my former fiancés say.
Have you brought the child?
The child. Oh, the child. No. But we did want to talk about the child. Seems like this deal just isn't beneficial to Ripon anymore. So we were hoping to have a little dialogue about maybe the deal, maybe cut a new one.
I think it's fair to remind the two of you got the formal pursuivant briefing in London that this is the same woman who showed up on the button cam who called herself Duchess, who was the who claimed to be a cleaner in the cathedral, and in fact seemed to be able to open a portal into Fairy for the previous pursuivant mission. And she appraises you very carefully, because in the last week or so of human time, that is the second time someone has said that to her. And last time it ended up in a hail of bullets. So she is just looking very carefully at you.
I mean, I want to make a deal, obviously, that's beneficial to both sides, as opposed to deals which are only beneficial to one side. For instance, the deal made with Ripon was only beneficial to you in the long run, and of course the aborted deal that you may have made with somebody who may or may not have been associated with me in any way whatsoever, that was clearly only beneficial to that person who clearly acted on their own and has no bearing on any decisions I would possibly make. Nope. No.
That is such a good spiel that though you cannot manipulate this creature, I am going to let you roll with charm. Roll with sharp to act under pressure to see whether this bamboozling effort to demonstrate to her that this all fits together does in fact work. So go ahead.
I got an 8.
Okay, so on an 8, she says, somebody else has had this conversation with me, and they were very unpleasant. Why should I think you are different?
Were they British? I'm from Wales, so I fully understand how you could have a problem making a deal with somebody from England. Welsh, we don't go back on our word.
That rampant appeal to the GM's nationalism certainly is enough to make all the difference in this conversation. She says, "Oh, all right then, follow me," and she'll take you down a series of passageways where frost is beginning to form on the walls. And though outside there are windows into what appears to be the outside, but all you can see is a kind of constant snowstorm. And you end up in a space, a large grand hall that you recognize from the briefing as the Hall of the Fairy Queen. And there indeed is the Duchess's sister, the Fairy Queen. You already have the button cam picture of her from the previous mission. And there she is in all her frosty glory. And she says to you, "Where's my child?"
Well, I was going to ask actually if you were married or if you were available.
Do not waste my time, mortal. Where is my child?
Well, she's just resting. If we're talking about Ivy, if you're talking about a new child, we actually I would like to talk to you about that.
So have you just implied that you have Ivy?
Yes.
Have you taken my princess?
Taken? What? Taken? I mean, she came of free will, so no. My answer to that is no.
Do you have my princess?
As you can see, it's just me. Pockets are empty. Nope, don't have her.
I think it's fair to say at this point, if as I'm guessing that James and Sharp might be looking about at this point, just having a look round.
Hopefully.
Could I ask each of you to read a bad situation? Oh no, sorry. Can I ask one of you who's most likely to read a bad situation effectively? Who's sharpest?
James.
Yeah, that'd be me.
And we'll see how that goes. And then if Sharp notices anything, we'll see whether he can help James. Yeah. So James, roll to read a bad situation, because the impression you get is that this is not a good situation.
It's +2, right? It's a 7.
Okay. So on a 7, you have one question that you can ask. There's no point helping. It won't make the difference to get you across the boundary to 10. So which question, James, do you want to ask me?
Okay. I would I don't know. Best way in or best way out? I'm not sure. I think we want to actually do something about this pact, right? So would actually go for what's the best way in, like to get this conversation into like a direction that we could benefit.
Okay, I think that while Lunk's dissembling, that it appears to be annoying her. She wants someone to get to the point. And so I think the best way to get this to negotiation is to come out straight and offer her something with clear terms.
Okay, clear terms. That's the more difficult part here, I guess.
Do you mutter maybe that like he's just pissing her off or something, or like?
I think she's not taking this well.
No, I think you're right. Sharp will. Your Majesty, my name is Sharp, a member of the Northern Pursuivants, and I am entrusted with Her Majesty Elizabeth II's power to speak to you on behalf of the mortal realm. And, you know, as my companion here has been saying, the noble Lunk, smashing catch, just so you know, I have been charged to speak to you about the pact that the Saint drew up all those years ago. Now, we've got our terms, and we'd like to hear how you feel about them.
Okay, no more. I think when you talk about this Elizabeth II, you can see her eyebrow goes up and she says, "There's another one."
Aye, and she's a fearsome and fell regent, I tell you. Some say, though mortals are but fireflies to people such as yourself, she is timeless, and though many people wonder when she's going to go, there's always another year left in Lizzie.
What she doesn't, what is clear is she doesn't recognize the idea of the pursuivants at all, which might explain why she doesn't crop up in any of their records. So where do you want to go with that conversation?
So the first thing I'm going to say the pact is your princess is no more. There's a young girl named Ivy, and she's with her mother.
Oh, that makes her angry. You have stolen my princess.
I have stolen nothing.
That anger, you notice some movement on the walls. Now, what you had taken to be simply slightly ragged banners hanging on the walls of this hall are beginning to move, and it's almost as though banners that were hanging like that are beginning to move down the walls, just so you know.
Now, I'm not here to talk about who's got stolen. I can think of a family that could claim that something was taken from them. But that thing's back now. And I'm here to talk to you, court to court, queen to agent of the queen, and come to some arrangement, as we've come to an arrangement with the summer court. Is that right? Have we come to it? Do we now have arrangements with the other courts of the fairy?
I think certainly the Pursuivants know of and have a working relationship with the Queen of Hyde Park.
Yeah. Is she the Summer Court, or is she just the Queen of Hyde Park?
They think that she's the only queen.
Right, I see. Yeah.
In the islands.
Right.
I think that what she will do is she snaps her fingers and there appears in her hand a piece of parchment. Now, I think that James will recognize this as an identical copy of the piece of parchment he found in the bundle in the library, which appeared to be the original signed by Wilfrid, marked by the Queen, pact, the contract. And she looks at you, Sharp, and says, this is binding for all of time. If I don't get my child, I will swallow this place whole.
Now, Wilfrid, he was around in, what was that, 400 AD, 600 AD, something like that, right? 650, yeah. Now, Wilfrid at the time, he was the man you'd be talking to. But there's been this little thing called the Reformation since then. And we've had one of our own kings. He put aside the powers of the church over the mortal realm. And now, that pact is null and void, love. There's nothing to it. Wilfrid was never in a position to make a pact for all of time. Wilfrid was only in a position to make a pact for the power of the church. Now, it's the power of the throne that rules over England now.
Then why have Wilfrid's men brought me children?
As a sign of good faith, so that we may reach this point now, where we can redraw our association as equals.
As equals? How dare you?
Not me.
Getting very cold here.
Not me, Your Majesty, or my compatriots, but as royal powers to one another. That means something to you, I know.
Those banners are beginning to make their way across the cold, frosty flagstones towards you.
I have one more card to play in terms of this.
Go on.
Yeah. And let me tell you, nothing hurts more than a child being taken, does it? I can see how you'd be hurt by this. Now, Ivy's not your only child, is she? Or was she?
What do you mean?
I believe she has 2 brothers, right?
You speak of Dum and Dee.
I do speak of Dum and Dee. Now.
Dum! Dee! Come to me now! And there appears, out of the shadows in the hall, a creature almost identical to the one you've previously encountered. And she looks and says, Dee! Come now! But only Dum ambles across the hall towards you. And for the first time, a look of, hang on, crosses her face. This is the first time there's been any shade of uncertainty. What do you do?
Well, where could he be? Children, they just run away from you, don't they? Now, I heard tell that he was out in the mortal realm. Ivy says that one of her playmates was with her. Now, perhaps you and me, we could come to some kind of arrangement about Ripon, and as a sign of good faith, I'll go out into the mortal world, and I'll return your wayward son. But Ivy...
Do you have my princess and my son?
I can categorically say no to that question. I do not have your son, and we do not have your princess.
Then you have no bargain.
But we can find them. For you.
I can find them.
How?
And again, a slight kind of, has he just called my bluff look crosses her face.
I know that a son as loyal as yours would come running, and no power in the world that you could overcome could possibly keep him from you. But mortals...
Okay, just pause for a moment,
Yeah.
because I just want to make sure what James and or Lunk might be doing or preparing to do as this exchange goes on.
James is a bit worried about those things crawling on the floor. So this is a bit unsettling to him. But I don't really know what I could do about this. I mean, so is this like inanimate objects moving to us, or is this like a hidden creature somewhere, or what is this?
I think it's probably fair to say that as they have moved towards you, they actually have patterns on them that are caricatures of playing cards.
Okay.
Lunk, what about you? James, we know, is now very concerned about these things. What about you?
Is it getting cold in here, or is it just me? Queen, do you think you could turn the thermostat up? I didn't come dressed for an outside date in the winter.
It gets colder.
Oh, that's a bloody shame. Who are these guys?
They will destroy you, mortal.
But then who would find your son if we were destroyed? We're the only ones who could find him.
And again, there's that slight, and it's almost like she's trying, while keeping this conversation going with you, you can see that she's trying, she's almost feeling for the other redcap. And she's not finding him, is she? So, how do you want to bring this scene to an end if you have something else you want to do? Because shortly it will move to violence, I think.
I think so. Before this gets a little too out of hand, we are willing to return your son in exchange for all the future lives from Ripon. I think it's been, I don't know, 80 kids, 90 kids. I can't count that high. That have come and been your princess. I think that's a pretty fair deal for you in exchange for getting your son back. And we're willing to do it. Do you have other mortal contacts that you could reach out to help find your son in the mortal realm? I mean, there's just us.
I think that sounds to her like a concrete offer. Is that what is that the intent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That in return for the lives of the children of Ripon going forward, you would return her son, because you did say there, I think, that you had him, or you certainly implied that to her.
Yeah, I definitely implied that we could get him back. So, I mean, okay. She's not dumb.
She will click her fingers again, and the original contract is replaced by a new one.
Sharp, this is your deal. I'm not a member of the royal household, and it looks a little too long for me to read anyway. Yeah, so perhaps the two of you gents would like to do that. I'm gonna,
James,
put my flask here. It's been a little bit long.
Yeah, don't drink anything they give you, Lunk. Just don't drink it, don't eat it, don't touch or taste anything, or you might be staying here a bit longer than you think. Yeah.
Whatever you say.
Oh, he's going to eat it now and get the contrary point. Yeah, James, thank you, Your Majesty. I'm glad we could come to an agreement. I'll just have my man here look things over, and I will pass it to James, confident in his expert eye.
Yeah, I wonder how solid that eye is. I think that given that we already know fictionally that James is slightly nervous, I just wonder how much attention he actually puts into the small print. Do you want to act under pressure to decide how much focus he has on the small print, James?
So I think James knows how important the small print is for the Fae, because everything is hidden in the small print. Probably everything else is absolutely without any consequence, but the small print. But yes, I agree. I think I'm not like that. Yeah, I'm cool, but not so cool. So I think a roll is appropriate to figure out how much attention to detail I put into this. Nine. What is this? Plus cool, right?
That's cool.
Then it's a 10.
And I think there's probably sitting in the background a +1 ongoing for having taken this approach, but fine. There is quite a bit of small print in there about the personal responsibility of Sharp of the Pursuivants. It appears to be a pretty personal contract between Sharp of the Pursuivants and the Fairy Queen of the North. Because for all that she's heard all this stuff about some Elizabeth, another Elizabeth, for all that she's heard something about, these pursuivants who are Elizabeth's men, she thinks she's being stung because she signed a contract with a certain Wilfred, and now she's being told that it's too late to claim on Wilfred and that nobody else is able to do this. So she's going to make this very, very personal. This is a contract between the Fairy Queen of the North and Sharp of the Pursuivants that does indeed offer to do away with the children taking in return for her son.
There, so I'll read through this, and I will point out those sections to you, Sharp, and I'm like, I think she's like taking this quite personal. But
they're like this. Royal family are all the same. All right. Anyways, I mean,
but I couldn't find like strange loopholes. It seems kind of sound to me. I mean,
my only concern is that I mean, as far as what you're saying, it doesn't seem like there's anything particularly bad. We return Tweedledum or whatever, and the kids are all right. But my worry is that when I die, Kids of Ripon won't be safe because we'll be going over this whole thing, but from the other side of things, right? I wonder, for Your Majesty, and I'll just raise my hand and I'll just say, my man here, he's looked over the terms, and we both agree that they're very agreeable. We could certainly come to an arrangement, but my only concern is that you will be placed in the same position that you have been by the caprice of our fleeting mortal lifespans. Now I stand just a mortal, but I stand for something bigger than myself. I stand imbued by the power of the English throne. Now, where it refers to me, Sharp of the Pursuivants, perhaps I might suggest that the throne of England returns your son. Otherwise, when I die, well, who's to say? your son might go missing once more. That's how we put it in writing.
This throne does not have him.
Ah, but it does. This throne, as you hold sway over this kingdom, that throne holds sway over the mortal world.
And I think that it's clear which way this is going. She is prepared to hold off taking Rippon's children as long as Sharp of the Pursuivants is alive. The original contract will fall back into use when Sharp is unable to fulfill his part of the bargain.
Which is just to be alive, really.
The other thing that James noticed was that the safe return of her son. And he just thinks this could mean that if anything else happened to the Red Cap, then that might also breach the contract.
Do you mean after he'd returned him?
It certainly could be read as meaning that Sharp of the Pursuivants takes on some responsibility for the health, wealth, and safety of a certain Red Cap.
I don't want to be playing babysitter to Tweedle Bloody Dee or Tweedle Bloody Dum. I mean, they're big lads. They can take care of themselves. I mean, I was stabbing him not half an hour ago.
Those tapestry playing cards have begun to move again, by the way.
The safe return. Now,
I guess you're just going to have to live forever, Sharp.
I have some thoughts on the matter. I mean, you know, I'm a legend in my own lifetime, so why not? Well, Your Majesty, is this your final word? Is there no change to these words that you will accept? Because, you know, I don't want to keep on flogging a dead horse.
I think you are reaching a point where you are flogging a dead horse. What she is offering you is a way to protect the children for a hopefully very long time. I mean, this could save at least 2 children if you live to a ripe old age. The one that she wants now and the one that she'll want when you're probably in your 60s or 70s.
It'll save the town of Ripon from any more disruption and madness, right?
It would.
Alternatively, if you move to the land of the fairy, clearly you don't age.
Yeah, that's one solution. I have to say, do either of you think that Sharp is my real name?
Ooh. Say no more. Say no more. Know what I mean?
And at the point of your death, we'll discover exactly how binding this contract turns out to be.
Yeah. With a heavy heart, mainly thinking about, I better not be this bloody Tweedledum, better not come poking his nose around the mortal world, or I'll be, I'll be breaking this pact before we know it. But Sharp will sign the contract and make the arrangements. And he'll say, send us back to the mortal world, and we will return your son with all due haste.
While I'm immensely tempted to point out that that's not in the contract, and if this was a 4-shot, I think we certainly might have you wandering the lands of Fairy seeking a way home, because we know this is coming towards the end of our second and final session. I think that I will have the Duchess take you back to Ripon, just as she brought the previous agents into Fairy. It's a very uncomfortable sensation, actually, because it feels like you're traveling through the earth, and you find yourself erupting out of some lawn beside the maze at evening time. Happily, the bands are now playing, so when no one notices this disruption. But you do appear at the edge of the crowd in the spa gardens. And I suppose the hard question is whether you keep your end of the bargain. James, what do you do?
Sure. I mean, so let's get this bugger out of my phone, I would say. I'd probably look for like a place that is a bit lonely, like that no one actually sees what I'm doing. And then I will release this thing.
Fine. I think probably near the edge of the spa gardens, among a little kind of group of trees, would be a place to do this. And of course, when you press the button that says, empty memory, and he appears to kind of come out of the front of the phone, out of the camera of the phone, into reality, his first reaction is to leap at you. But happily, Duchess is there and lays a hand on his arm, and the two of them disappear into the ground, leaving you with a mission that appears to be, for the moment at least, complete. So we do have a little bit of time, so I am interested in any epilogues that you would like to give me. What might we have seen at the end? The mission has succeeded. You have the Queen is not expecting a love child now, and as long as Sharp is alive, we think she's not going to expect any. The question of what might happen if one of her red caps gets into difficulties remains to be seen. Watch this channel for when this series is finally given approval. But yeah, I'm just curious, in the final montage, what do we see your characters doing or having done to them? You leap in at your convenience.
Yeah. So what what I think James is doing, he will, before he leaves Ripon, or before he and Lunk probably go back to London, leaving Ripon, he will spend a few moments in the cathedral looking at the lost book, like to him, the book he lost, unfortunately. And he will like contemplate, but then in the end he will leave the book in the cathedral. And then he's going on his ride home, and then you probably see him entering his home and his library. And he will go to his bookshelf, and he will take out another first edition of Alice in Wonderland, sit down, make himself a cup of tea, and read it.
That's great. Yeah, no, I just, that shot of him kind of stroking the glass of the cabinet before he leaves the library. But no, I mean, that tells us all we need to know about James. He already had a friggin' copy. Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, who's next?
So we see Lunk back at his flat, sitting at his kitchen table, a small kitchen table, little black book in front of him, and then some fast cuts of him dialing a bunch of numbers and being hung up on, and finally just a picture of him down at a corner pub, just himself. No fiancés tonight. Sometimes you have success, sometimes you don't. But he's definitely drinking off the weird. This was quite an experience.
I think that's great because it shows us a bit, because Lunk has shown it's been all front, and there's this vulnerable, quite lonely individual behind. I think that's great. Thank you for that. And finally, Sharp.
So Sharp goes back and prepares his report for the Home Office down in London, and he lays out what happened, and in his report he sets out a few recommendations of his own conclusion, and first among those is that the office of the Pursuivant in the North is to be renamed immediately as Sharp. And so the head of the Pursuivants in the North, and then he also includes a little bit of padding for his report about how the office must be seen as being a high office of the Pursuivants, and it may only be appointed by the previous incumbent of the role, and how immediately there must be funds for new staff and new headquarters based in Ripon, and he puts in a request for 2 permanent members of staff, a man to advise on expert opinion of matters of law and archaeology, and an investigator with strong local ties to the region.
I think that's pretty cool. Do you want to just describe the office he's working in? Because I know what I think it's like, but I'm just curious what you think.
Oh, no. Like. You describe the office. I have little to no idea.
Well, I suppose somewhere in Leeds, I think, we see him going up this kind of quite small staircase to a small garret at the top of this Victorian building. And he sat there in front of a window looking out over the city. And everything's handwritten. So he doesn't have a computer. And we just see ranks of filing cabinets and old bundles of papers around him, and a kind of a camp bed in the corner. Such is the depths to which the Northern Pursuivants have fallen. And of course, my epilogue will be back in the rather plush offices beneath the College of Arms, overlooked by St. Paul's Cathedral. We'll see someone getting the report. They've read it through. And come to the recommendations, and then recommendation denied, file.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
That was great, guys. That was a really good session. Thank you for that. I would like to do some roses and thorns. You can give each other roses. You can only give thorns to me or the system. But shall we go in character keeper? Start with Scott. Any roses and then any thorns.
The first rose would be actually for you, Alan. I liked the sense that this wasn't just Monster of the Week, which is one of the weaknesses of Monster of the Week, is that and they can feel very disconnected from each other, the adventures, and this was felt like there's more out there, and that these guys were part of something bigger. I like that, and
thanks for that.
And roses to my 2 partners. Bring up the ball with my incompetence got us into trouble. It was a lot of fun playing with both of them, and I liked how they played their characters a lot. It was great.
Thank you for that. Christopher, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I mean, I loved the characters. I mean, Sharp and Blanc, I mean, it was really enjoyable. I had a really good picture in my mind of both of them. So this was like really, really nice. I liked this last scene with the Queen a lot. I mean, William, you did the heavy lifting there, but I mean, this was really, really a cool scene. I enjoyed this a lot. And yeah, Alan, thanks for hosting this. I really enjoyed it. I liked how you kept all of us involved all the time. It was really, really, really nice. I mean, never played this before, and it still kind of worked out for me.
Well, that's always a relief. But yeah, no, I know it's your first game of Monster of the Week, and so it's great you had a good time. Thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And finally, Will.
Yeah, I loved this. I would love to. I think I'm going to have to buy Liminal and see how much of it is crossed over from that. But I really enjoyed how we weren't just, fighting the monster. We did investigate, and we had to find a non-violent sort of resolution to the problem because we couldn't kill everybody, right? Even if I did throw Sharp into the fight as soon as possible. That's because I felt that would be like his reaction to a big monster in the middle of things. But I would like to say I really enjoyed Lunk cutting through. He says that when he dropped the ball, I think when we dropped the book, he managed to solve something very quickly. And I very much liked. I loved James's epilogue. That was great. But I really did enjoy James. Not just like pulling out his shotgun and going toe to toe with a monster, or still being that kind of like, we have a plan. What is the plan? Like, if things aren't in books and they aren't very neat and tidy, I need to know what is going on and have a plan. And that was great. And thank you both for letting me absolutely come up with the most amount of bullshit I've come up with in my life in a short amount of time. We're trying to come up with ways to persuade the Queen or get out of the contract or anything, basically. And with Ivy as well. God, that was just pulled out of my pocket at the last moment.
I mean, no, I if I can just add my roses, I think that these are three characters I quite like to know more about, and I always think that's a good sign. It would be quite nice to play a bit longer with them. To just begin to put Lunk under a bit of pressure about these relationships, to maybe threaten that library, Jay. I mean, that's yes, exactly. And I think the further adventures of Sharp, I think, are almost certainly going to involve Redcap. I have to say, seems to me to be a no-brainer. So no, I thought you really made these characters three-dimensional. You really engaged with the material, and it was really easy work at my end. You did most of the work, so thanks for that. Any thorns? Anything that you wish you could have done that you thought you might have had an opportunity to do and just didn't come up? Let's go the other way down. Will.
No, not really, to be honest. I did choose a use magic character effectively with the initiate, and I was constantly trying to think of ways I could use that use magic for things. So that's why I mentioned about the battery dying, because I was like, I'm pulling that crutch out far too many times. I think in longer term play, I would need more of a structure for that thing rather than just you've used magic too much, you can't do it kind of thing. But in this context, it was very much like, I don't want to keep on solving every problem with my use magic roll.
I think for me, it's one of the flaws in the system, actually. I think that the rules, they give everyone the opportunity to use magic in the base game with no real cost, apart from the risk that sooner or later you roll the wrong dice. And I think, yeah, probably, I think you're right. I think I owe players the opportunity to know that, or at least, warn them the next one could be the last one, given the way the battery's draining. I think that might be a reasonable thing to do. So no, I get that, and I think it's something I'll think about. Chris, any thorns, anything that you kind of wish you could have done that might have showed the character off in a different way, or anything that kind of just gritted a bit in the way the system ran or the way I ran it?
No, not really. I mean, the moves kind of, sometimes it's just me. Sometimes I just get stuck on like picking the right question, but that's just me. I think all of this makes a lot of sense in the context of Monster of the Week. So I mean, no, I'm good. No thorns. Loved the way you ran it, Alan. No, it's
great.
good.
Great. Yeah, I think it is something that a lot of people said about Monster of the Week is that you never pick the right question with hindsight. So don't worry about that. And then finally, Scott, anything that could have gone better for you?
No, I had a blast. It was good. I had plenty of opportunities to do what I often do best, which is talk fast and be dumb. that's always good for me. If I can play somebody who's less than competent, I'm good.
Well, I mean, I'm fascinated because I think you're on the list for Gauntlet Games now in a couple of weeks. And if you end up in my Achtung Thulu Dark game, I shall be interested to see where that fast talking incompetence gets you behind enemy lines. So before I stop the broadcast, then I just want to say to all of you, it's been an absolute pleasure running for you, and I hope that we get a chance to play again. And I'll stop the broadcast.